All right, everyone, we are 4 weeks out from the midterm elections in the United States. Of course, we're not talking about Italy right now. They already had their election. Link in the description, archived, of course, a little bit of analysis of the midterm elections, and I'm going to give my thoughts here. I'm going to be doing a lot more midterm predictions, individual races, various states, and this one's more of a general video as the midterms approach. I will be trying to do a test stream with Sleazy P. Martini before the midterms themselves because I want to make sure everything works properly. I've got to coordinate that over the next few days or weeks or something long beforehand. The problem is, of course, we're on totally different time zones, so bear with me. I will be trying to hammer things out. I think that this midterm stream is going to be one for the record books. It's going to be fucking legendary. Not only do we have a crack-smoking co-host, well, he sells it. I don't think that he gets high on his own supply. We also have various guests that are already lined up, so it's going to be a fun one. Here's my thoughts on the midterms, looking at the race as it is now, and specifically looking at a couple of facets that are affecting the races. And those are the border crisis, crime, and the economy. These are the main issues that most Americans care about right now. If you go down the list, the economy as a total, just in an overarching sense, is number one. Gas prices and inflation are up there in the top 5 too, even though they're subjugate to the economy. So it's really a compounding factor. And then crime and the border. Those are the top 5 issues. Education takes a number 6 slot. The Republicans were winning on that, and I strongly suggest that they pivot their campaigns to talking a little bit more about critical race theory, because you've won on that issue 2-1, and I don't hear a lot about it, except for people who are denying that it exists. But if it existed, it would be a good thing, of course. We've heard that meme before. If you can notch all of the top 6 issues in the election, I think that basically we might as well just go home because the election's conclusion is foretold already. Here's what I think. I am upping my prediction for the Republicans. I believe that they will perform better than I said about a week ago. Based on movement in polling, based on some problems that certain Dem candidates have had, and based on forthcoming economic news. As of tomorrow, we should be getting the new inflation report. It will probably tick down by a tenth of a point or something like that. That means it's linear, because it's measured year over year as opposed to month over month. It'll get crowed about by the left, and they will get hammered on it like they did last month when they came out and said, well, we're at 8.5, see, inflation is falling, and then reasonable people said, no, it's technically still rising. You're using a year over year metric, and you're compounding the inflation on an already inflated number. If it doesn't start to fall, effectively you've got hyperinflation, if it's prolonged for more than a year. And this case was made. People go to the store, they see the result of Bidenflation. They go to the gas pump, they see the problems there. That's another big one. Before I get into my new expectations, I'll point this out. Gas prices are slated to rise. You're getting, eventually, and I believe it's literally this month, they have to shut off the valve on the strategic reserve, so you're getting less of a marginal decrease in gas prices. You have multiple refinery issues, and then OPEC is suspending some production. In that context, the gas prices are likely to continue rising over the next month, and it's right before the midterm elections. You also have Tulsi Gabbard leaving the Democratic Party. I don't think that this makes any difference whatsoever with mainline Democrats, but as far as independents who are leaning left, who are more likely to vote for the Democratic Party, I think she made a pretty solid case for why they should not do so. Even if it only affects 100,000 voters, which is a drop in the bucket, that will have a massive impact on the elections in some of these races. Here's why. Right now we have a whole bunch of toss-up races that are basically 50-50. If I go by a conservative estimation, and this article, again, link in the description, makes the point. If you look back at 2020, 2018, 2016, and 2014, you have to go back to 2012 to find an election in which the Republicans were overestimated in their support, and then it was only state by state. That was, of course, the famous moment with Karl Rove having a meltdown live on air on Fox, and I loved it, proclaiming Mitt Romney can't possibly lose Ohio. I checked the polls triple myself, and it was very, very funny, and he stormed off to the backstage area to start harassing random Fox employees and had a total fucking meltdown. And it was very, very funny and very, very cringy, and he should have known better. When we're looking at, though, unskewed polls, a la Karl Rove, we're typically looking at partisan bullshit. I don't use those. I use RCP's aggregate. And RCP has started to take into consideration the fact that in the last 4 elections, the GOP has been underestimated. This is more prevalent in midterm elections. Indeed, with the exception of 2012, you're looking at, I can't remember the last time a midterm election overestimated the Republican support. They tend to have higher turnout than the Democrats during midterms. A single point swing, just 1 point across the board, and this would be less than the historic norm in recent history, would give them a handful of very, very important races that right now they are behind on. It probably gives them the Walker v. Warnock seat for the Senate in Georgia. That becomes a pickup. It certainly gives them Kari Lake over Hobbs in Arizona. That's a gubernatorial slot. That's a big one. If Kari Lake wins, she's on the short list for a future presidential run. Just fucking trust me. It helps that her opponent is a complete numbskull who repeatedly gets called on to debate her and refuses to do so. It may give them Pennsylvania, Oz versus Fetterman. That's been moving in Oz's direction. I had all but written off Oz until maybe the last few weeks. Now it's almost a 50-50 sum game if you go beyond that. If you were to have numbers like from 2016 or 2018, and you have a 3 or 4 point swing in the GOP's favor, my goodness, you're not just going to see a red wave, it's a red goddamn tsunami. You would end up with, God, you could have 50 House seat pickups. You could have 3 Senate seats. You could have 3 gubernatorial slots. Right now, I basically comport to RCP for the Senate and the gubernatorial races. I think that it will be 2 pickups in the gubernatorial sense and 2 pickups in the Senate sense. So the GOP takes them back. It's by a small margin on the Senate side. In the gubernatorial sense, they have a near supermajority at that point of state houses that they control. They'll probably pick up a state house or 2 as well, by the way. The House is more difficult. Of course, you got more seats up. You've got a larger potential spread. I keep pointing out to people one interesting facet of the House seats, which is that the GOP can take back the House of Representatives even without winning a single toss-up race. You've got more than 30 toss-up races that are calculated. The GOP technically doesn't need any of them. They can lose every single 50-50 sum game race where there's less than a 2 or 3 point spread in one candidate's favor and still take the House of Representatives. Hell, if they come in a couple points behind on the generic ballot in the final calculation, they probably still take the House back. It just means that they don't get to take the Senate and they probably only have 1 or 2 gubernatorial pickups. You could have 3. You could have 4, depending on what happens in New Hampshire. I don't think that's likely. Sorry, that's a Senate, not gubernatorial. My opinion, the average now, I'm bumping it up to 30 House seats, based on what I see over the last couple of weeks. Things, briefly, for about a month there, they looked like they were moving in the Dems' direction, but people forgot about abortion, even though they tried to jury-rig it back in as a major issue. The economy's not getting better. In fact, it looks like we're probably not going to get great numbers for Q3, probably not going to get great numbers for inflation. That settles it. You're going to have an official recession declaration. Biden's approval remains deeply underwater. It's more than a 10-point gap. That's more than you need to have a red wave election. It's just a matter of how big it is. It's a matter of whether it's breaking even in the Senate, take a gubernatorial seat maybe, and then regain the House mildly. It's good for the Republicans, but basically you've just locked down the government. Or whether it is a legendary repudiation of the Biden administration and some of the crazy shit that the Democrats have been doing. I lean towards thinking the latter's more likely. I'm hoping for the latter, and I say this as a non-Republican. My hope is that they absolutely crush the Democrats. My hope is that the Democrats finally get that legendary loss where they have to do some soul-searching. They're beginning to hemorrhage independent voters. They're beginning to hemorrhage everything other than the far left, and they can only keep them aboard by giving them more handouts. You need to reform your party. It would be nice to have a 2-party system instead of a 1-party system. Right now, the Republicans are being sane. This is something we haven't seen in a generation. Post-2016, they're the ones that are not calling for nuclear war at the moment. They're the ones that are not calling for taxing everyone up the ass in the middle of a recession. the Republicans are being sane. That doesn't mean that the Republicans have measurably improved on every issue. It means that the Democrats have gone completely goddamn batshit. And until they stop going goddamn batshit, they're going to keep losing. It's just a matter of whether they keep getting handed little losses or they finally have that really goddamn big collapsing absolute defeat that forces them to force the far left out of the party or define themselves as socialistic. Make a goddamn choice. You can't ride the fence forever. That's about all. Peace out.